Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very special and unique episode of the TikDocs. You're probably not used to hearing my voice first for special reasons. We are doing this in a different way. So, just for today, maybe we'll bring this back, but I am one of your hosts. My name is Dr. Terrell DeGand. I am known on TikTok as That Black Doctor, and you'll be hearing from my co host, Dr. Caitlin Baker Lesser or Lesser Baker, I believe. And she is also known as That Fat Doctor on TikTok. And we're going to do things a little bit differently today. So I'm going to start us off today by talking about two concepts that I've talked about with my clients, things that they found to be really helpful, and hopefully you guys can listen to it and apply it to your lives. So the two topics I'm going to be bringing up today are the lies, the versions of lies, and the number of lies that there are. And of course, what I tend to use quite a bit is something I call the feedback loop, or more specifically, it's the loop that has the fear and avoidance piece to it. So the fear avoidance feedback loop or the fear avoidance cycle. So I'll start with the lies. When you guys think of lies, how many lies do you think there are? Some people would say there's hundreds of different ways to lie. Maybe just a handful of different ways to lie. There are little white lies, there are major lies, there's lie by omission, there's all these different versions of ways of keeping secrets, but the way I see it, it all breaks down to two things. There are the lies you tell others, and then there are the lies that you tell yourselves. I think we all tend to believe the lies we tend, sorry, I believe we all tend to believe the lies that we tell ourselves, and then we start using those lies to tell them to others, and we start losing track of what they are. When I think of the lies that I've told myself over the years, it's astounding. And it's amazing what you will notice about yourself once you stop telling yourself those lies. For instance, at one of the jobs that I work at, I work with people that have very traumatic histories. And I notice that people tend to tell themselves, I wasn't the victim when they were. They also tell themselves that I'm not that great of a person. Some of you may be telling yourselves, I don't deserve to be happy. I don't have what it takes. I'm not ready. And it can be for anything. I'm not ready for the promotion. I'm not ready for that job. I'm not ready to try harder. I'm not ready for kids. These are the lies that you tell yourself because one day those lies just stop being believable. And the reason for that is because you start to realize that it is a lie. Now, some things are very appropriate. If you don't have enough money for something and you need to spend money on it, then you're not prepared. Doesn't mean you're not ready. Don't get those two confused. If you're thinking about something and you haven't made a decision, then you're not there yet, but it doesn't mean you'll never be there. We tend to tell ourselves a lot of really big lies, and we don't really understand what it means to tell ourselves that. If you ever find yourself saying, "Ugh, it's not a big deal, it's fine, I'm okay with it," that's you rationalizing to yourself that whatever's going on in your life, whoever's annoying you, pissing you off, getting on your nerves, or telling you that you're less than what you really are, you're starting to believe them because that's the lie you need to tell yourself to deal with it. You don't have to deal with it, friends. You really don't. And it doesn't matter what your age is, it doesn't matter what your sex, what your nationality is, your primary language is. You don't deserve to be treated less than who you are. If anything, you should be surrounding yourself with people that make you better and make you strive to be the person that you want to be. You are not less than. You will never be less than. And if people make you feel that way, they're the people you don't want to be around. So that's one type of lie. And then there are obviously the lies that you tell others. So that's a little bit easier to deal with. If you're lying to others, it's for a reason. I want you to think about the times that you lie to others. As kids, you start to learn that you can say things that aren't the truth and what it means for you to say that. So it starts innocently enough, just trying to work with what you have and what knowledge you're able to manipulate. You might say all cows are purple, or when I in the car with mom and or dad and or grandma, they do funny things, like they fart and they do things that really entertain me, that's great. Maybe they don't do that. Maybe they do. Maybe cows are purple to you. Maybe you don't really understand what purple is. But you're starting to manipulate your current knowledge with what you're saying, what you're doing, knowing that your actions don't line up. Children are bad at lying because they don't know the purpose of it. And we start to develop a purpose because we have that ability. So what's the purpose of lying to others? To spare someone's feelings. Usually it's others, but sometimes it's our own. Maybe I don't want to say to others, you're not doing what I expect you to do, and I don't want to hurt your feelings, but I need to let you know. Or I need to get my feelings across, and I don't know how to, in a way that saves you. A lot of lies are the things that we do in order to protect others in many ways, or protect ourselves. If I'm not doing well at my job and I have an excuse, I need to lie about it because I want to protect myself. If I notice that the person that I'm with is doing something wrong and it's affecting the ones around them and I don't want them to get in trouble, I might lie for them to others. It's common. It's unfortunate, but it's common. Doing the right thing is never easy. Scratch that. Doing the right thing isn't always easy. Sometimes it is, but a lot of the time it isn't. And telling the truth is very difficult. When I was younger, I used to say, it's not the lies that hurt people, it's the truth behind it. Now, I may have to modify that as I get older and as I learn more about psychology and working with people, but I think a large part of that is fairly accurate. It's the truth behind the lie, knowing that someone's not telling the truth, experiencing something different than what you were told. That's what hurts a lot of people. And doing the wrong thing has consequences. Even if you think no one knows, someone knows. There's a lot of things that happen where you're hurting someone, even if you don't know it, even if you don't see it, even if you don't accept it. Sometimes that someone's yourself. So try not to lie to others, please. So for this next section, I'm going to be talking about what I refer to as the fear avoidance feedback loop. The fear avoidance feedback loop, as I refer to it, or as I've named it, this may exist somewhere else in psychology. I'm not all knowing of psychology. Yes, I have my doctorate, but this is something that I just noticed with my clients, and I've used it many, many times, and this is what I call it. I also call it the fear avoidance cycle because it's easier. And the way I describe it is, if you have a fear, whatever that fear is, your natural inclination is to avoid it. Avoid the fear, no problem, right? Well, that's not how the loop works. That's not how the cycle works. When you start to avoid something, chances are it's going to lead right back to the original fear. And sometimes it amplifies it. So how does that work? Well, let's do some basic things and then get into things that I've actually seen and people that I've worked with. So, basics. Let's say you're afraid to ride your bike because you might fall off and get hurt, be embarrassed. So you don't get on your bike. You completely ignore it. You go out, your friends are riding their bikes, you want to go with them, but you're not going to embarrass yourself, so you never learn how to ride a bike. Well, now you're embarrassed because you are older, you never learn how to ride a bike. You try to get on and you will fall because you don't have that balance set in yet. That's how it works. That's how it works for many, many things. So let's use more real examples. Are you afraid to ask people out because you're going to be seen a certain way as less than? Well, if you don't get the practice asking people out in socially appropriate ways, then you never learn socially appropriate ways to interact with others. So when you try, it will be awkward and you will be rejected more times than not because you're interacting with people that learned, I don't want to be treated like a person who's just there for your physical needs. So the fear of being rejected, the fear of people not wanting to be with you is fulfilled because you avoided it for so long. If you're in a successful relationship, as in you got married, maybe you're having kids, but you're afraid to talk to your partner about what's going on in their life because they may get mad at you, start avoiding it. You avoid the topics, you avoid confrontation, you think everything's great. You can say we don't really fight that often because you're afraid of what would happen if you do. Well, frustration still builds. There's still things that you should be talking about. There are things that need to come out that don't. So they come out in different ways. Maybe it's you spending too much time with others. Maybe you spend way more time with your friends than you spend at home. Maybe you invest a little bit too much into the children by either being overprotective or you're overparenting, maybe a helicopter parent. So now other people are taking that energy that was supposed to go into your marriage, and that fear of having that disconnection, it comes up and you don't know how to deal with it. And it happens there too. Really, we can apply this to any situation, and I'm probably going to do a live on this for my TikTok so I can describe it in more realistic terms and see how that applies to people. And I invite all of you to join. I'm going to be starting my lives fairly soon. Today is January 29th, which is a Friday, 2021. I want to make sure you guys really get this and understand that avoidance is not the way to deal with your fears. Confrontation is. And confrontation isn't this idea of just fighting something or working against it. It's looking at what your fear is and saying, I'm not going to be ruled by that. I will not make a decision based on fear, and I will not make myself be inactive based on fear. If you're not doing something because of fear, it's likely the wrong decision. If you're doing something because of fear, it's likely the wrong decision. I'm not saying go out in the woods, see a bear, and say, I'm going to punch it in the face. I'm not going to be afraid of this. That's probably the right use of fear. But there are times when you're just holding yourself back. There are parts of your life that you don't know where they're going to go until you just put yourself out there. So I challenge all of you, look at the thing you fear, whether it's big or small, and say, I'm not going to be controlled by this. I will be better. Don't lie to yourself and tell you that you can't. You can, you will. We all believe in you. Let's do better together. So that's our section for today. I appreciate all of you for listening. Maybe we'll add a little bit more. I don't know yet, but it's been fun and I look forward to it. Take care.
Hello, Dr. Caitlin here. We're doing a little bit of a different kind of episode this week. So y'all just heard from T, and now I'm going to talk about how to find therapy and what are some signs of a bad therapist. And this is just because of things that people have asked me. So I feel like these two topics are really, really important. So let's dive in. So, what is a bad therapist? What does a bad therapist look like? I'm not one to condemn a therapist because I hope that my fellow colleagues are trained the way that they should be. However, there are some that do slip through the cracks. So if your therapist is, talking the whole session, probably not a good sign. If your therapist is maybe not talking at all, I've had that with clients who said that like their last therapist just sat there and wouldn't respond or interact. So if that's something that you would prefer, then that might not be the choice for you. What else makes a bad therapist? I think just someone that you don't mesh with, right? So finding a therapist that you're comfortable with is everything. Everything. The therapeutic relationship is one of the most important parts, and it's, statistically shown to be one of the biggest factors in recovery, or in the success of therapy, is the relationship between the client and the therapist. So if you have a therapist that you're not feeling and you're like, I don't really think that we're meshing, dump them. Bye. You're allowed to dump us. You're allowed to ghost us. I've been dumped. I've been fired from clients before, and I never take offense to it because guess what? My job is to help people. And if these people would be better helped by someone else, it's still my job. And I consider it my job, not every therapist does, but I consider it my job to then make sure that they're able to get help somehow. So even though I'm not the one that's going to be able to help them, I can still help them in some way. And that probably just makes me feel better about myself. But I also like knowing that, they're taken care of and in good hands and ready to move forward. So that brings me to, I always say every session, my very first session with a client, I will say, if you ever feel like this is not a good fit, please let me know because it is my job to help you and to find someone who can help you if it's not me. So like I said, you will not offend your therapist. Even if you do, like, they work for you because you're paying them. So get over it. I mean, there are some that it's more difficult not to take offense to, but at the end of the day, like, there's some reason. It could be a psychological reason. Like maybe you pushed a button that wasn't quite ready to be pushed, or maybe you just phrased something wrong, or it's most of the time just a total personality thing. So I realize I have a big personality, right? I'm not gonna just sit there. I'm not the kind of therapist that just sits and hangs back. No, we are interacting. I'm gonna give you a couple yes queens when you're talking about your successes of the week. And I understand that not everybody can handle that. But that's also not to say, so I do change my kind of affect and temperament depending on the client. So I'm always at the core me with my beliefs and my skills and all of that. But on the other side of it, different people walk into your office and you have to be a different kind of person for each individual that walks through your office. So like there are some people that I can be totally myself with, and that's great. And there are some people who need, maybe my softer side, and that's okay too. Or some people who need me to be on their ass about things, and that's fine too. So it's just interesting. I feel like therapists in a way are sort of like chameleons because I can talk to anybody. I can start a conversation with anybody. I feel like I mold into what that person needs. And it's hard to say how I know what they need because it's such an intuitive thing. And I'm an empath, obviously. I've always been very kind of kind-hearted and sensitive, and I've just always been good at talking to people. So that's my spiel on that, is that find a therapist that works for you. Don't be afraid to fire your therapist. Happens all the time. Don't be afraid during session. Another big one is I've had some people message me actually, and they'll say, I really don't feel comfortable with my therapist, but I want to bring it up to her or him, but I am scared, or I'm not sure how to do it, or I don't want to offend them. If you have these genuine concerns and you're willing to talk it out with the therapist, or if there's something that the therapist is doing that you don't like, I promise you, if you tell them, you will be relieved, they will be relieved, because that block in therapy, when you hit that wall, if both of you are at an impasse, you need to talk about it and get over it to move on with therapy. Otherwise you just get stuck, because it can be as simple as, I had someone one time that didn't like a phrase I used a lot when they were talking. So when people are talking and active listening methods in order to show that I am listening and I got you, and whatever I say, I nod, I say okay, I say yeah, and I say, I respond while people are talking. And they didn't like that. They wanted to talk the whole time uninterrupted. That's not me. That's not me. We did not work out. And that's totally fine. That's totally fine that person needed a different therapist. It doesn't offend me because I am not everybody's cup of tea. Okay. So that's a little bit about that. Another topic that we have on our sheet that we've been asked about is, have you ever had a client that you hated? I don't like the word hate. I feel like that's a very strong word. I don't necessarily hate everyone, but I have some individuals that have been harder to work with than others. Absolutely. And that's mostly comes down to a personality thing. It's not a diagnosis thing. 9 times out of 10, 9.5 times out of 10, it's a personality thing. However, I have had some clients that I've had to turn away or refuse. I have a couple populations that are really difficult for me to work with based on personal things. Like I have a hard time dealing with I don't like that phrase. I have a hard time working with sex offenders, especially sex offenders of young children. I have a hard time finding empathy for them. I definitely have some, because there's a reason. And usually people abuse people. But I know that I would have an inherent bias going into the session, and that person deserves a totally unbiased, someone who's very well versed in that, and that is not me. So that would be someone that I would turn away. I don't turn away very many people. I like having a variety of all different kinds of diagnoses and personalities and cases. It keeps things interesting, and it's funny in this job is that, like, in a normal 9 to 5, you know what to expect hour to hour. You're working on a project, you do the same thing kind of all day. But with therapy and being a therapist, every time I walk through the door of the therapy room, it's like a completely different experience. Every hour of my job is so different, and it keeps it really interesting. It's definitely exhausting. I think that that's something that people don't realize a lot of the time, is how tiring therapy can be for the therapist, and doing it back to back to back to back. Just, it's hard hearing compacted traumas or just people going through stuff. And it's like, you want to help everybody, you want to take away their pain, and you can't, not immediately anyway. So that's something that's really hard for me, is just, I want a magic fix for people, because I don't like when people hurt. So going back into, there definitely have been cases I've had that I've worked with people who I necessarily, if I had the choice, would not have worked with them. But again, it's a personality thing. It's totally a personality thing. And that's okay. I would never I don't know if I should say I would never, but it would be very unlikely for me to ever turn someone down based on personality. That's something that I would want to work through and process together and try to figure out how to communicate and work together. But usually when there's a personality issue, the therapist gets fired, which is, again, fine. Fire me all you want, as long as you go get the help that you need from someone else. Okay, so I already talked about some signs of a bad therapist, but what are some other signs? I'm going to tell y'all, when you're searching for a therapist, please make sure that not only do they have a degree, but they're also either licensed or on their way to being licensed or currently working on hours to be licensed. There are a lot of things going around right now that's like life coaching or a lot of spiritual stuff, and they claim that it's therapeutic, but it's not therapy. So make sure that whoever you're seeing, if you're seeing a doctoral level, you're going to want to make sure that they're definitely licensed. In a doctoral level, I would make sure that they're licensed unless they're postdoc. So that's where I am right now. I'm doing my postdoctorate. I have to get enough hours to take the licensure exam, which is going to be fun. But anyway, so I just make sure that their credentials are legit. Google these people. Their information is available online. If they're licensed, that information is available online. Make sure that they're legit. It doesn't happen often, but it does happen, and just protect yourself from that if you can. What's another sign of a bad therapist? Someone who's always late. Don't be late. That's rude. If you can't be on time for a session, what are you doing? Like, it's your hour. The therapy hour is 50 minutes, but it's your 50 minutes. You get to use that however you want. It's not right for me to take time away from you by being late myself. A few times happening, absolutely. Emergencies happen, things come up. But if it's happening every single time, that's kind of going to be a problem. I'm trying to think of like one more. Or let's talk about how to find a therapist, because I get asked that question a lot. So my favorite resources for finding a therapist is psychologytoday.com. It gives you a little like profile. It's kind of like I like to describe it as a dating profile for a therapist. So it gives you like their little bio, what their specialties are, what they're licensed in, what their qualifications are, and you can kind of see if any of them you might think that you could mesh with them possibly. It doesn't hurt to email them and just get a vibe. Also, so for people that may not have the money to go to therapy, which is understandable because therapy and insurance and all of that is part of the medical issue in America. So affordable therapy is actually a lot more easy to find than people are aware. So if you don't have insurance, try looking up community mental health centers in my area. And the community mental health centers are grant funded based on a bill that John F. Kennedy passed, but you don't need to know all that. Basically, you have the right to mental health treatment, and these centers have to provide care for you with or without insurance. They usually do a sliding scale fee if you don't have insurance, which is nice. So that would be that. The other way to find a therapist or someone that does a sliding scale, call local therapists in your area. Like, look them up on psychologytoday.com, find one you mesh with, give them a call and say like, hey, times are really hard. I need some support. Do you have a sliding scale fee available? They might say yes. Some therapists do. We're almost required by our code of ethics to do pro bono work and to help the community for free. So that's kind of, we look for those opportunities. So if you ask, someone could be like, man, I need a pro bono case on my load this month or this, whatever. There you go. So it doesn't hurt, never hurts to ask. I think I'm going to wrap it up there. I know this was a strange episode. Timing just did not line up this week for T and I to film together. So, but that's okay. I like talking to you guys individually, and I know that he did too. And he got his whole little spiel out without me interrupting him or making fun of him or whatever. So I love all of you. Next week, hopefully we will be back to normal, and we have some really good topics coming up. So really excited to see where else we're going to go. And it's Self-Care Sunday. So I love you all. Take care of yourselves. We're going to do some affirmations. Repeat after me. I am strong. I am brave. I am beautiful. I am important. I am intelligent. I am loved. And I love myself. Have a great week, everybody.